My friends, it's time to start the next project, and we've got a fun one to do right here. Look at this. Yes, it's a nice, beautiful Gibson guitar. I'll tell you what's wrong with it right after this. Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. And in that opening, you saw this guitar, and odds are you couldn't tell what was wrong with it. And me just looking at it like this, it's kind of hard to tell too, until I look close. Can you see it now? Can you tell what's wrong yet? Well, it's not just that the bridge is coming loose, as you can probably see. That's not the whole problem. You still can't tell? It's plastic. I'm not kidding you. That's not a real wood bridge. That's a plastic bridge, and it's bolted on. It just doesn't stop. I'm sure this was some sort of a cost-cutting measure, and I'm sure, Gibson had some changeover and different things, and different people get control, and they've got this idea how they're going to make tons of money, and they're going to improve everything and make it more efficient, and so forth and so on, etc., and so forth. But the idiot that thought this up, I don't have words for that. I really don't. I have said before, on an acoustic instrument for sure, possibly even on electric, but for sure on acoustic instruments, black and white, this is the spot right here. This is the critical spot. This is 99.9% of your sound right here. People get to thinking it's the nut or it's this or that. It's not. It's right here. This is where your sound happens. You don't cheap out right here. You don't cheap out on the inside. You don't cheap out on the outside. This is not the place to cheap out. Otherwise, you might as well just go back to making the little plastic Roy Rogers guitars. Good grief. I know they've got to be ashamed of themselves at this point in time for having done that. And hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterback, all that. But sorry, on this one, I would never have made that choice. That's the one choice I can tell you for sure. In the 40 years I've been doing stuff, this is the one choice that would never have gotten past me had I been one of the execs at Gibson. In fact, I'd have probably fired the guy that came up with the idea. If that's what you think, we don't need you here. We'll see you later. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got to deal with this. But you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to tighten the strings up on this and try to play it in the shape it's in and let you hear it. And that way you'll have a good before and a good after. Okay, well, I got to tell you, and I'll be honest, it doesn't sound that bad with a plastic bridge on it. Would I still put a plastic bridge on it? No. But it does sound halfway decent. Here you go. So what do I attribute that to? Well, to combat the plastic bridge, what they did was they put a ceramic saddle in here. So that saddle is very crazy hard. If you put that ceramic saddle in a wooden bridge, I think it would sound very harsh. But they've done something there to kind of blend the two. And so they're kind of getting away with something by putting that ceramic saddle in there. And that's really what saved them in terms of the sound. So I'm just going to play a little bit here so that you can have an after comparison later. Okay, so I'll try to do that same thing when we do the after comparison and let you hear the difference, if there is a difference. And I'm fairly sure it'll be better than this. Even if it doesn't sound that much different, it'll be different. plastic bridge. Give me a break. Well, as you can see, I've got the strings off this puppy. Yeah, look, I think this one's spinning on the inside, I think. It's spinning on the inside, and I'm holding it with my fingers. I think I'm getting it off. Yep. It's coming off from the inside, unfortunately. I don't know, it's all stripped out or something. Well, I'll figure that out, and I'll show you the next step. I just reached inside there with my hand and rubbed around there, and you can see all the pieces of wood that are breaking off and falling down. That's mostly from all this, damage that's done. Because see, there's holes here, there's holes over in here, there's holes back here. So they put in a lot of fasteners to hold this plastic bridge down. So I'm going to have to probably get in on there from the inside. Look at the size of the nut on that. Right there, that's just, it's just junk to put inside of an acoustic guitar. Anyway, I'll have to get in here and figure it out, because I know there's something going on there that won't let that screw come out. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fasteners in that. Yeah, that's just pathetic. I don't recall seeing that type of a fastener before, but I guess it's just a small nut. It almost looks like it's got an Allen head on it also. But I'll just get in there with some small wrench and see if we can't get those loose. Well, I had to go get a 1/4 inch socket I think is going to work. Well, I guess it was just the curse of the camera. As soon as I turned the camera off, it went on there and started unscrewing one of them. At least I think it is. Yep, it did. So it had to be just the curse of the camera, because I knew I had fit a 1/4 inch on there before. There it is. 2 washers and a screw like that. Just enhances everything. Well, I only have to do that about 4 or 5 more times here, and we'll have this thing apart. Yep, that one's turning now too, finally, and sure wouldn't do it a while ago. Got the next one out, another pair of washers. These are smaller washers with the same kind of screw. Those screws are going up into the plastic is what they're doing. But just think of all the holes that you've got in here. You got the 6 holes plus 6 more holes in the top right here. How strong do you think this top is in this area? It can't help the strength. Here's 2 more with the bigger washers. There's another one with the small washers. Another big washer coming off of this piece. Another nut. Another washer. I think I got them all, but let's look in there and see. Yeah, that's all of them. It looks like it ought to come out of there now. You'd think that would lift up, but it sure doesn't want to. Let's see if I can pry it up. Well, that didn't help anything. It doesn't want to come out. Nope, prying ain't going to work either, I can tell. But it just is spinning. It's spinning in. I guess the thing must be stripped out that it's screwed into. I'm afraid I'm going to scratch up the top here if I'm not careful. It's hard to do 2 or 3 things at once when you can't see what you're doing on even one of them. I don't know why that one there doesn't want to come out, but it doesn't. This one here unscrews, but it only goes so far because it gets kind of in a bind. Maybe I got it. Maybe we can get it out this way. So here's some more. And this piece here is ceramic, as I was telling you, very hard. So in my mind, what they did was they put the ceramic in there to offset the soft plastic. It's kind of a little bit of a blend if you think of it that way, I guess. I think the plastic bridge should lift off here now. I think it should. Yep. There it is. You thought I was kidding, didn't you? Does that look like a wood to you? Oh my goodness. And you can see here, this thing is, okay, the whole metal thing is rotating. I see it now. Oh yeah, that's the whole insert. Well, the whole insert's got to come out of there anyway, so I'm just gonna push it out of there. There we go. I pushed it out. That was stuck inside there. It wasn't rotating in that at all. So that's glued in or something. Maybe we can get this other insert out. Maybe I can use this like a hammer. It's coming, but I'm afraid I'm gonna break out the finish here. So I've got to keep that pushed down as yep, I got it. Didn't do too much damage. I don't think it came outside the line of the bridge there, so I think we're okay. That's what Gibson called a bridge when this was made. You got this chunk of metal there, this ceramic. That chunk of metal was under the ceramic, I'm sure, to keep the ceramic from breaking, because the ceramic is very brittle. It's just pitiful what they did. Yeah, pitiful, pitiful, pitiful. Just for fun, let's go ahead and count how many holes are in this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have exactly twice as many holes as we really ought to have. Just pitiful. Oh my gosh. Now I haven't actually really studied the bridge pad yet, so let me look at that and see what we're dealing with there. Have a feeling it's going to be plywood, and it is. Not horrible. I've seen much worse. It'd be nice if it would easily come out of there and we could just replace it while we're doing this. But I just have my doubts that it'll come out easy. Let me just see if by some hook or crook we might get lucky. I doubt it. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like it's glued pretty good. So we might have to live with that. I don't know. You know, my problem is this is going to weaken the top significantly in this area. And you start trying to pry really hard to get that bridge plate out of there, and you're probably going to bust this top. So I got to do some more thinking on that before I decide how I want to proceed with this. My friends, it's the next day, and you know, looking at this bridge, I was thinking, well, what should I make it out of? And I got to looking at this fingerboard, and from what I can tell, and I haven't actually scratched it yet, but from what I can see here, it looks to be a rosewood fingerboard. So thought I'd see if I can scratch it. Things pretty scratched up anyway, just from the factory. You can tell those are factory milling marks in there. And that looks like rosewood to me. So I've got a piece of rosewood here. My next step will be to trace this out on this piece of rosewood and cut this thing out. So that's what we'll do. In order to do a better job, and I'm not going to reuse this ever, nor would I ever put it on anyone else's instrument or even keep it in stock so somebody could have a replacement. These are junk. So I'm just going to cut these stubs off flush so that it'll lay flatter on this piece of wood. That way I can trace around it. Because these stubs are sticking up and it's making it float around, and I don't want it to float around. I want it to lay on here where I can do a good job of tracing it. And what I'm going to do is trace it slightly bigger, not a lot bigger, just slightly. I'm going to leave an even space across the front there that's not much bigger, but you know, a good pencil width thickness. And then I'll draw the back profile on here. So there you got it, and I'll cut that out. I wanted to use the front end of this because it's a little bit finer grain. It's not a perfectly straight across grain, but it should be fine. and it is good quality rosewood, so it'll make a nice bridge. Actually, now that I look at it, I may turn this side up. I like the looks of this side better. I think I will. I'll probably make this the top side. So now I got to retrace it again. That should work out fine. These little scratches that you see in there are just very much in the surface, so I'll get rid of those. That won't be no problem. And I think I'll go cut this out.
Whole life, no more corporate strife. Put your alarm clock away in the drawer. No more conference calls, and no meetings in the halls, and no business to conduct in a bar, and no self-serving boss, nor the threat of the loss of the paycheck that I've earned 8 to 5. 'Cause I'll be out.
Well, that only took a couple of minutes. So now I'm going to give myself some marks where I want to have the curl stop here. So it's about right in here, about right in here. I'll just make that somewhat symmetrical there. I'm going to go for 1 3/8 inches is what it looks like. So we'll just make a mark right there at 1 3/8 inches, and we'll come up here and make a mark at 1 3/8 inches. And then I'll just put a square mark across there. And I haven't actually checked the thickness of this, but I'm sure it's at least 300 thousandths. I would just guess on that, but I'm pretty sure we're at least there. 400 thousandths. So we need this to be roughly, say, 350. So I'm going to go to the thickness sander, take it down to that first. Well, actually, I wasted my time putting those marks on there because I'll have to redo that, but that's okay. I'm going to go take this down to 350. Then we'll put the marks back on, and then we'll do the ends. Well, it probably would have helped if I had turned the camera on for thicknessing that. I said I was going to take it to 350, and that's pretty close. It's right on 350, so it worked out just fine. Now we're going to go put these lines on here and then knock these ends down. Okay, I'm going to take the ends down. I put the lines back on there, so let's get started on that.
On that ranch where I can reach the first branch of that corporate tree grown from on high. I don't own it, I just manage its worth. It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth.
Well, at the moment, I've got these down to about 150 thousandths, and honestly, that's a pretty good place to stop. You know, it's nice to have that extra little bit of rigidity. I think it's going to be just fine. You know, we may actually have to thin this down some more, and if I do that, I may thin these down a little bit more. The only reason we might have to thin this down more is because that plastic bridge was really thin. You can't put a great big thick one there expecting the action to work. But right now I think we're in pretty good shape, so I'm going to leave it there for the moment. And that's what she looks like. I went ahead and rounded this off, so you can see they look pretty similar. This one is just a hair bigger. I don't know how tall this one is. Let's see if we can get some kind of measurement on that. When I say tall, I guess I mean the thickness. And it's really even hard to tell with this thing, but it's roughly 276 thousandths, and we're quite a bit thicker than that. We're at this says 349.5, so we're at 350 thousandths. So that's quite a bit thicker than this one. I didn't really notice how much above this that the saddle lay. I think I'm going to stay right here. I can always take this down by hand if I need to after I put it on the guitar. But I want to go thicker a little bit if I can, because that area has been weakened by all those holes, and you can already tell that that part right under the bridge is pulled up on the guitar. So, you know, to be able to flatten that out and, you know, make it stronger again, I'm going to leave it as thick as I can leave it, at least for now. It's the next day on the project. I have to decide how I'm going to proceed at this point. I would like to use these holes to line up this new bridge, and I could just clamp this, I guess, and trace these holes and then re-drill them. Maybe that's what I ought to do. My hole jigs that I have don't match this exactly. This hole jig is just about 1/4 of a hole off by the time I get all the way to the end. It probably won't show up there for you, but you can see, I think, that the holes span a greater distance, and this is the shortest hole jig I have. So I think what I will do is just find a way to clamp this on here. You know, I've got those transfer punches, and put the appropriate transfer punch in here and punch a mark, then go drill them at the drill press freehand. And I believe they'll be close enough. They'll be close enough to line up with these holes. That way I can line up these holes and then trace around this bridge once I get the holes lined up. So that's the way I'm going to proceed, right, wrong, or indifferent. Okay, off camera I lined that bridge up as well as I can, and I left a little bit of overhang, like I said, because I want to have an overhang all the way around. Now I've got the transfer punch that fits the hole the best. I'm just going to go through there and make a little dot right where the hole should be drilled. I don't want to hit it too hard because I don't want to split the wood. And that looks pretty good. I don't know if you can see those little punch marks inside there or not when I turn that around, but I'm going to go over to the drill press now and drill those out. Well, my friends, I found the right drill size and chucked it up in this chuck, and I've had trouble with things flopping in this chuck. It's supposed to be a Jacobs chuck, but it must be a knockoff or something. It says Jacobs on it, but I really don't know. But anyway, I have trouble with it. So I thought it was just the chuck. Well, I thought I'll take this drill over to my wood lathe and chuck it up and see if it spins straight there. Well, it didn't spin straight there either. In fact, it was worse there. It really wobbled badly. So I tapped it with a wooden mallet to try to straighten it, and I got it pretty darn straight. I'm not sure what it's going to look like here, but it was pretty straight over there. Yep, that's pretty good. Compared to the way it was, that thing was wobbling so bad that you would have been able to see it. So I'm good with that. I'm going to go with that. I'll put this backing board on here as I drill through, and hopefully it works.
Care for his trees, water his sun. I don't own it, I just rent it from God.
Well, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now you can see I'm about ready to just put a little chamfer on these. People are always saying I'm using the wrong tools. Well, here's a chamfer tool, and look at the chatter I get. This is the kind of chatter I get every time I use a chamfer tool. And it doesn't matter what kind. I've tried 5-6 different kinds. I always get this kind of chatter. That's why I use that other step drill, and it doesn't chatter at all. So you can see the difference there. Now, of course, it did step down inside there a little bit, but that's not a bad thing either, because those pins are tapered anyway, and then by the time I run my taper through here, it takes that extra little step. Most of that little step goes away. So it really does a pretty decent job. I can't say it's the best thing, but it works for me. Well, I've got the holes lined up with the pins, and quite honestly, it's not as covered up here on the front as I wish. I guess that plastic bridge had slid forward and made a little bit bigger scar area than I was anticipating. So I'm pulling this as far forward as I can with the holes that I've got to work with, and that's going to have to be good enough. Now I'm going to try to get this clamped into place just so it doesn't move on me. Clamp pretty tight so that it doesn't wiggle around or anything. It's pretty solid. And now I can take the X-Acto blade, and I tell you, these I'm still on the first blade of these blue blades, and they stay sharp and the point is still there. I'm really happy with these blades. They're available on the products I use list, and trust me, there is a significant difference. If you don't think there is, then you haven't used these blades very much. There is a huge difference between these blades and the standard blades that you buy. Yeah, you'll pay more for these for sure, but they last and they work. You pay once and cry once, as they say.
I know they won't miss me when I tell them I'm history. That's okay, for I've got a plan. And
that should be enough. And for the new viewers that don't know why I'm tracing around that with a knife, that is so that I can cut all this finish away. You don't want any finish where you're going to be gluing your bridge on. If you try to glue your bridge over finish, it will fail every time. Okay, I'm going to use this to chip the finish off. That's one of my planer blades, my finger plane blades. It's really sharp, and I just have it in a little piece of an aluminum as a holder. I made the holder just out of a piece of scrap stock. This burled thing is of no importance. It's just the way it was in the scrap bin. There's a slight angle on this, and then I've rounded the bottom off so I can get in at a low angle here. This rounded edge helps me pick the finish off a little better than a straight regular chisel. You could do this with a straight regular chisel. I just prefer this. It just seems to work better for me. And it's just a long, slow process of getting all the finish off. And you just have to take your time, and you want to be very efficient with it. Try to lift just the finish, and really not trying to lift any wood if I can help it.
be no regret, no hard feelings, no debt. We're all doing the best we can. So here is my...
Once we get this cleaned off, we'll fill the extra holes that are on the top up here that we don't need. Not because it's going to make that much difference, but we'll just fill them anyway. It really truly won't make a big difference in terms of strength or anything, but it won't hurt anything either, so we'll fill them. All this is going to do is make the video longer, so I'll clean this all off and show you the next step, and I'll do this off camera. Well, my friends, I've got this thing cleaned off and ready to put this on, and it went fairly well, and I think it'll be fine. It kind of locks into position there, but there is a huge hump here, and there's a huge, I'm exaggerating, but there's a hump this way and a hump this way too, and it's all because of how weak this is and the fact that it was a plastic bridge, etc. and so forth. We beat that to death, but the point is it has created more problems than you might imagine. I'm not sure if I want to go ahead and just glue this on and then replace the bridge pad to fix all this, or maybe I should try to fill the extra holes before I even glue this on. I think because of these giant holes, well, there's 6 holes really that I think I should just fill. Not that it's going to change the strength of it very much, because it won't. But anyway, I think I should just fill those. Now, the only problem with filling them too, though, is I have to be careful how far through I fill them. I don't want to fill them through where they go into the bridge plate that's there, because I don't want to lock that bridge plate on. It's kind of a catch-22. See, if I fill these holes, then that might actually make the bridge plate attach better. And I don't want to do that. I want to get the bridge plate off. But to get the bridge plate off, I really feel like I need to put this on there first. So it's kind of a catch-22. I'm not sure what to do first. I got to give it a little bit of thought. My friends, another day has dawned on the project here. I let it set overnight and thought about it. And I remembered, hey, I got a laser cutter. Why don't I just cut out these fills with the laser cutter? So I did that. I'm not sure it cut all the way through. Pretty close to all the way through. So that's the thing you don't ever know about the laser cutter, and you hate to cut it again, because if you cut it again it burns it more and stuff. So I'm just going to see if it cut through it enough to get through this. Where those hard grain lines are, it doesn't always cut through that. So that's probably what the problem is this morning here, although I can bust it through, I think, no problem. So I haven't tested it yet, obviously, so we're testing on camera here. What I did was I measured it in millimeters because the laser cutter likes to work in millimeters. I mean, it'll work in inches, but since it defaults to millimeters, I just quit fighting with it and I just go with that. Well, that's not too far off from perfect fit. I would say, honestly, it's a little bit loose. I prefer it just a hair tighter than that. I think I cut it at 10.8. I might just go ahead and make it 11. Let me try one of these small ones and see how they fit in the small holes. Quite honestly, they're just a hair small too. And I think I cut them at 6.4, so I think maybe I'll go to 6.6 on them. I'll increase the size by a little bit on the laser cutter and try again. That only took a couple of minutes. I turned the laser up just a little bit hotter, and that did help cut this out a little bit better. And let's see if we got a little tighter fit. Yeah, that's a pretty good fit there. That's not too bad. I'm just assuming these are going to fit, these smaller ones. I haven't checked them yet, of course. I think they will because the other ones weren't far off. Snug. Yeah, they're going to fit just okay. I think I'm just going to go with that just the way it is. I'm not going to change anything. I was thinking about trying to cut a smaller part on this to fit down inside the smaller hole, but I think I'm just biting off too much there. So I'm just going to go with it the way it is and make it fit the hole the way it fits the hole.
Last words, some may think it absurd, but I know that someday you'll find it's...
I am letting the grain go across the grain rather than with the grain. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't think it hurts for sure to go across the grain. I think if anything, it strengthens it just a teeny bit.
Better to leave than to stay and to grieve. Instead of a paycheck, you'll have peace of mind. I don't want it to just manage its worth.
And I can leave them stick up proud and cut them off with the finger planes or some other means, sand them off or whatever. Won't be a problem.
It's a small slice of heaven placed down here on earth. I care for his trees, I water his sun. I don't know, did it just read it from God.
Because I can work the glue down in the crack just a little bit. At least this way, I know I've got full coverage, and when you get, a plate on the top and the bottom, and these are glued on the sides, it just adds some amount of strength. I don't know how much, but when you're in this area, the thing is, you want all the strength you can get. So why not? That's the reason. It's not because I think you have to. It's because why not? It's done, and we'll give that plenty of time to get real good and dry and hard. Well, it's about 2.5, maybe 3 hours later. This glue seems to be in good enough shape that I can go ahead and smooth these off. And I want to get this bridge glued on here today so I can make some decent progress on this. I typically don't work on Saturdays on the instruments because I'm working on the farm, but I needed to get this going, so I'll have a video for this coming weekend. I really can't feel them now, so I think that's good enough. I think that should work. I'm going to clean the back of this off with some acetone and get the glue on here and get this thing clamped up. So you can see there, these were the same color, and that's what I wiped off the back of this. Now I'll just use this side here and wipe some more and show you that it still takes off more. Actually, I'm using lacquer thinner instead of acetone. Either one of them works just about the same. And I don't have enough on this rag that it's going to splash on the guitar or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just a very fine amount. And you can see there what it does. It just, basically, you're just removing extra oil that you don't need so that the glue can stick a little bit better. This is a dry rag now, and I'm just wiping it off real good and dry. Lacquer dries incredibly fast, but if you take a dry towel like this, it just speeds it up even that much more. And then I know I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to find me a caul first, if I need a caul. This is a pretty thick piece of plywood that's in there. I may not really need a caul. Let me just see how the clamps fit in there. You know, the reason you use a caul is to span the internal braces. And honestly, I don't think we really have to have one, but I probably just need one, just a thin caul if I can find something thin. So this little piece here fits it pretty well, and I'm just going to use that as a caul.
I don't want it to just manage its work. It's a small slice of heaven.
I just want a real thin coat. I don't want a heavy coat that just makes it squeeze out lots of glue. I just want 100% coverage with a nice thin coat.
Down here on earth, care for his trees. I water his sun and don't own it, I just rent it from God.
I'll drop these pins in there temporarily to just kind of help me with alignment. Don't really need the pins much. Now it's going to be the tricky part is getting this all in here. I'll roll up my sleeve. And yeah, I could use two-way tape, but I'm not a big fan of the two-way tape thing. Sometimes it sticks in there so hard you can't get it out, and half the time it won't hold it until you get the clamp in there anyway. It's really just kind of an annoyance to me. So this is an annoyance too, I'll admit, but I can handle it. I can do this. The bottom of the clamp is holding the caul in place temporarily. I'll try to get this piece on here, and then I'll just try to get a little bit of pressure on it. Not very much pressure yet. Just enough to kind of hold it all in place. And then I just want to kind of look at it all, clean up the glue and stuff like that, and then do some more clamping here. So let me get the glue cleaned up and I'll show you the next step. Alright, I have the glue cleaned up and I put a lot more pressure on the center thing here. I've got these all the way up, so they're not putting any pressure on it yet, which I don't want any pressure there yet. And now we'll clamp these down. If you get these too far down ahead of time, you'll cause an overbow in your top, and you don't want that. So you want to be able to clamp these center clamps down good first, and then clamp the end ones down just snug enough to know that you got some pressure on there. That's really all you need. And now the glue's squeezing out quite a bit all over. And for the one or two people that might still be thinking that you can squeeze all your glue out, I've been doing this 40 years now, or it will be 40 years in May, and I have never squeezed all the glue out of a joint, ever. And I've never, honestly, and as far as I know, on a good glue joint that we're able to glue like this type of thing that I would call a good glue joint, on any type of obvious good glue joint where you could get good clamping and all that, I've never had a glue joint fail ever in 40 years. So I say clamp them tight, make sure you get good clamping pressure, and make sure everything's clean and full coverage, and you shouldn't have any trouble. I truly don't think I've ever had a glue joint fail, at least not to my memory. Not a regular good glue joint. I've had a few things fail that I knew up front that this probably won't hold. You know, those kinds of joints, that's a different thing. This kind of a joint, I've never had fail as far as I can tell. That looks pretty darn good. We're gonna let that set overnight. Well, my friends, it's been 24 hours. I just happened to be in the shop, so I thought I'll just go ahead and take these clamps off this. Once it's had time to dry and cure, there's no reason to leave the clamps on, so I'll just get them off of here. Might as well loosen those up a little bit too. we don't have a plastic bridge anymore. Well, as you can see, the clamps are off, and I'm just going to re-drill these holes. See if I can ream these out the rest of the way. Well, that should take care of that. I'm still debating on whether I want to do the bridge plate replacement. I'll tell you why I'm hesitant to do this one. Like I normally just do them, but this one is still glued really, really tight. I can tell it's super tight. It's not easy to get them out of there. Even when they're loose, they come out very difficult. So this one's going to be extremely difficult. The problem with that is that you risk damaging the top. I mean, like, there's no zipper. You can't just pull it out of there gradually, casually, cautiously. It comes out violently. You're breaking it into pieces. You're busting it out of there. And what you run the risk of, especially since you can't see what you're doing, is tearing out a big chunk of the top. I mean, it's a very real risk. I've never done a real bad thing, but you never know when that's going to happen, and it could happen this time. So I'm thinking, in this case, since everything's flattened back out now, maybe I ought to just leave well enough alone right now and see how it goes. If this happens to start pulling up or whatever, we can always go to the next state of emergency, which would be to replace the whole bridge plate. Right now, this is going to save the customer a lot of money, so I think let's just go that route and see how it goes, and if it turns out that we need to replace it, we can always do that down the road. Well, my friends, in the sequence of videos, this is the next day yet again. I've had more time to think about whether I wanted to take that bridge pad out of there, and I've decided to stick with my decision to leave it in there. I looked at it again this morning and really had a good critical look at it, and there's not one spot on the bridge pad that is loose at this point in time. So because of that, I'm electing to just leave it in there. Anyway, I've got my intonation rig set on here, as you can probably see. I've got a very small saddle floating on here. I always try to get the saddle to approximate the action that I'm going to end up with. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be close. And so right now we're at about 85 there and about 65, 70 here. So that's pretty close. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the needle really good. Let me explain something to you about the needle. It's more important that the needle not move when you note it than it is to have it exactly perfect dead center. In other words, let's say I'm just maybe 1 cent sharp or 1 cent flat. Either way, it doesn't matter. When I press it, I want it to stay in that exact same spot. That's more important to me than having it perfectly dead center. If you can get it perfectly dead center, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what your goal is. But my point is, if you can't get it to settle on dead center, then when you note it, you just want it to stay where it was. So let me show you. Right there, we're just a fraction sharp, just a fraction. And we're just, well, actually now it's changed on me, but that's the thing you got to watch with these things too. You got to check them 3 or 4 times before you decide that that's where you want it to be. So let me tune it up a little bit. And we're just about dead center there, maybe a hair flat. We're just maybe needs to come forward a hair. I'm just moving it just ever so slightly. It went flat again. I don't know. You gotta move it around and get it in the right place, and there's a lot to this. And I guess the trap I'm trying to explain to you is you don't want to fall in the trap of believing the first thing that you hit. It's pretty close to dead center. And that's pretty close to dead center. So I like that. Let's try the bass side. We're just a fraction sharp probably there. And just a fraction sharp, so I think we're really close. That's a fraction flat, and it's still a fraction flat. Pretty close to dead center. It's pretty close to dead center. That's pretty close. Pretty darn close. You know, you can monkey with these things all day, that's for sure. And you want to, you don't want to just believe the first thing you see on these tuners. You want to, check it a couple times, move it around, check it, move it around, check it. Check it 3 or 4 times to be sure you're convinced it's right. Then, once you're convinced, then you mark it. I'm going to move it around here where I can see it a little bit better, and I think I'm convinced we're good, but I just want to double check it again. Yep, I like it. I like it. So I'm gonna go with that right where it's at. I take my fine pencil here, and what I try to do is mark it right under the string. That looks pretty good. And I mark it on the front edge because my saddles are all tapered, and that front edge is the last place it touches. So that's where I want to route the slot. I'm gonna set up to route the slot in there. Now that I have the 2 little marks, I just want to extend them. Boy, that's quite an angle. So what I typically do is I'll measure back from where this goes, starts down the slot, and I try to make them about equal on each side. And in this case, I'm going to make it about 5 millimeters. So that's where I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go on this side and do about 5 millimeters also. That way we've got the same amount of saddle on the top there. That looks pretty good to me. Now it's nothing to it except to set up the rig and route a slot. Well, I know the camera angle isn't perfect here, but I believe I've got everything set up the way I need it, and I've got everything really close. I have the depth gauge set for about 100 thousandths, not quite 100 thousandths. So what I'll do is plunge this in 100 thousandths here when I get it powered on. But everything's lined up as good as I can line it up, and this is the part that makes me the most nervous about doing all this work, is that you can screw this up so easily, and we'll just have to take our time and do it as nice and neat and easy as we can do it. Well, the first cut went just fine. I'm hoping the second cut will do the same, so I'll reset this and get ready to cut the next one. Well, here we go again. I'm still very nervous about this. I'm calling that a good success. That worked great. Oh, I'm thankful that's over with. I hope it's deep enough. I think it is. We'll double check it here just to see how deep. I'm hoping for 200 thousandths. If it's a little deeper, that'd be great. If it's not quite that deep, as long as it's close, 207 thousandths. I can't hardly believe my luck here. I was just looking through my things of saddles, looking for an antler piece that I might have. Sometimes I find one that'll work that I can just cut down further or something. Well, the first one I pulled out of there fit exactly in the slot. I mean, look at that, how tight it fits. It doesn't wiggle. It's perfect. I mean, it fits lengthwise, everything. It's like, are you kidding me? That just never happens. That's like winning the lottery 50 times over on the odds. It's crazy. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to go with it and go, wow, I like that. It's absolutely amazing. That you just don't know how odd that is. In addition, the saddle looks like it's the perfect height. That's what's even more amazing. It looks like it's absolutely the perfect height. So let's see what happens when we start trying to put it together. Well, I'm going to bevel these pins first, so I'll do that and then I'll be right back. Well, while I was sanding these, a little minor freak accident. I was doing something and something pushed my knuckle right into the sander there. Just didn't feel real good. My quick reflexes, I pulled it right out very quickly. Okay, well, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't done a fret job on this thing yet. When I look down this without strings on it, I see a slide underbow, and I just confirmed it with the straight edge, and there definitely is a slide underbow. So I'm of the proponent that you want the least amount of relief you can get, pretty much. I don't believe in having a lot of relief in a neck, and especially when they're unstrung. So I'm going to see if we can tighten this truss right up a little bit. And I'm going to hope that we can. Okay, so let's see if we can loosen it first. Yep. So let's try tightening it a little bit. My hands are so sore nowadays, I can't really do this very well. It takes both hands. But that did tighten it up some more. I'm going to look down it now and see if this truss rod does its job. It looks better. It looks better. Let's see if it confirms it with this. Still a little loosey-goosey right here in the middle. It's not touching in the middle. Yeah, it's starting to drag there in the middle now. Even though I think it's still a hair low. That's pretty close. I think I'm going to go with that because I've tightened it up quite a bit. It's starting to drag a little bit, and by the time I file all this, I'm going to, I'll just do a little more filing towards the ends, which I think you need that anyway in this area right here. So I think it's going to be just fine when I'm done. Okay, now that I've got that all tightened up, I'm going to go ahead and level these frets. Just kind of going through there slow first. I can always feel the drag. And I can see high spots, where it's shined on several frets. Right there, it's dragging pretty good. All right, I think it feels pretty good, so I'm just going to go ahead and feather it all out and level it all up. Thought I'd show you that right there, that fret has not been touched at all right there. Just looking at it real close. This fret in the middle has not been touched. The rest of them have. So right here in the middle, this one's okay. Everything's okay except right here, right here, right here. So there's a few places that just aren't even close to level yet. But we'll get it. This fret, believe it or not, is still just barely being filed compared to the rest of them. In fact, there's places on this fret that haven't been touched yet, and there are string grooves in it too. So we've got to go some more to get this down. This has not been filed yet either, by the way, and right here. But otherwise we're good. So there's three places, this, and right in here. Otherwise it's real good. Well, technically back here too, but doesn't really matter too much back here. It still has not been touched right there, really at all. It's amazing to me. This is looking okay up here now. I think I could live with that. This is still not being touched right in here, but almost. I can see it's just starting to lightly have a mark there. It's just got the faintest mark across there now. Back here, this one still hasn't been filed, but like I said, back here it really doesn't matter. And the thing you want to do when you run into an extreme situation like this is you want to feather it. You want to, you got to get down to that level, but you got to feather it out too. You can't just work in one spot. You have to smooth it out lengthwise from there. I think I'm good with that now. Now I'm just going to check the ends. That feels really nice. Okay, well, this has, I would call them jumbo frets in it. They're large frets, so I'm going to have to get my biggest fret file out and we'll go to town on that. All right, I'm just going to go through this and file it as quick as I can. You've seen me do it many times, so I'll just speed up the video through this. Got some 800 sandpaper here. I go this way because it rounds the frets much better and much faster. These frets are so large, I think I'm going to go back over it one more time with one more small piece, and it'll just make that much better job. I think that did a real nice job, as you can see. Now I'm going to use the semi-chrome polish on them. I'll go ahead and just polish them out. And I'm going to do that before I scrape it, because that way I don't have to worry about getting this on the fingerboard. I think you can probably see the difference there of how shiny this one is compared to the others. And I'll do that to all of them, and then we'll move on to the next step. Well, you got your sunglasses on. Those are really shiny frets now. Of course, the fretboard itself looks bad, but we'll fix that in the next step. So we'll take the single edge 12 thousandths razor blade, and we will scrape the fretboard. And I thought I'd just show you a close-up of that. You can probably see a real stark difference between these first 4 frets and the rest of it. And then of course we'll oil it all down when we're done. Okay, now that I have the frets all scraped, I go back through, and you've seen me do it many times, and I scratch right next to each fret to make sure there's no gunk left in there. And there always is gunk left in there, so that's why you have to do this. Well, that looks pretty darn good to me. I think I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the buffer and buff out the whole guitar just a little bit. I'm not going to film that because I filmed that in the last video I put out, but I'm just going to buff out the body, the top, the back, and the sides. Here's a before. It's pretty nice already, so it's not going to be a huge difference. And I'll show you the after here in just a minute. Well, here's what it looks like after the buffing. Looks pretty darn good. And now we're going to wax it. We apply the wax and we avoid the plastic pick guard. And got a clean towel here, and we keep the towel, just turn it over as much as possible because it just takes the wax off so much better when you keep a fresh surface. Keep a fresh piece of cloth on that wax and it comes off so much faster. Well, I see something here I forgot to do. I need to see if I can clean up this. It's not really glue exactly. It's more like glue residue from the water when I cleaned it up. So I'm going to take a damp towel here. And I think I should be able to clean that off. Hope I didn't mess that up by putting wax over the top of that. No, it looks like it's coming off okay. Back to the wax job. Again, when you're putting the wax on, you want to use a little bit of elbow grease with that too, to just kind of rub it in real good. And you know, instead of just wiping it on, you want to kind of force it in. It starts to dry pretty quick, so you want to get it back off pretty quick. That really looks super nice now. Now we'll go to the back and do the same thing. Go over it a couple of times like that to really make sure you got it worked in good. It makes a big difference on the overall outcome. And you can start to feel it starting to harden up. So that's when I quit and I go back over it and wipe it off. I'm gonna have to get a cleaner rag because that one there is starting to have too much wax on it. Get a clean rag and it'll take it off better. You have to look at it in different angles so that the light shines on it in different ways so you can see all the wax that's still on there. This kind of wax is much harder to put on and take off, but it also gives you a much better result. You can even feel the difference from one side to the other. This is just like glass, and this over here feels smooth, but not like glass. That looks pretty good. I'm going to clean off the table here because there's a lot of dust on here from scraping that fingerboard. Then we'll move on to putting on the strings. Looking pretty darn nice. All right, before we put the strings on it, we want to put the oil on the fingerboard. And it doesn't take very much. There we go, that's enough. Again, I like to rub it in and go back and forth. It forces it underneath the frets. In fact, I think I'm going to sand that a little bit. I'm not happy with the way that looks right now. Got some 320. It's been sanded through my thickness sander, but it hasn't been hand sanded yet. So I'm going to sand it a little bit. I think that'll make it look a little bit better. Get rid of some of the bigger marks. Well, quite honestly, I think the 320 was too big of a jump. I'm going to go to 220 first. So I think I'll put the oil on there now. Okay, I think that looks good. And now I'll wipe it back off up here. I think that looks pretty darn good. I think we're about ready to put some strings on this baby. One more thing I'm gonna do is put a drop of oil in these holes for these tuning keys. They're stiff, especially the bass side, and so that's what that hole's left there for, is to oil these gears. It sucks it right down in there when you start turning this. That'll help a little bit. Well, I'll go ahead and put the rest of the strings on there, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Well, my friends, I've got her up pretty close to pitch, and I just checked the intonation off camera, and it's dang near perfect. I mean, I don't know how you could get one much better. Almost exactly on. A lot of it depends on how you press it and how you move the string too. Just almost perfect. It's just real close to dead center all the way across. Yeah, it's really nice. I haven't checked the action. I think the action's going to be really close. Yeah, the action's great. 85 and, geez, 60, right about 60 really. 85 and 60, that's pretty darn good. So let's see how it plays. Well, you have to realize that the strings haven't even stretched out yet. I mean, they're brand new on here. Not bad. Hands are so sore, I can't do much of anything anymore. Every time it rains, Lord, I run to my window. All I do is just wring my hands and moan. Listen to that thunder roar, can't you hear that lonesome wind moan? Tell me, baby, now why you been gone so long? Tell me, baby, now why you been gone so long? You been gone so long now. Tell me, baby, now why you been gone so long? The wolf is scratching at my door, Lordy, Lord, and I can hear that lonesome wind moan. Tell me, baby, now why you been gone so long? No buzzing at all. It just plays like a dream. It plays so nice and easy. You know, I didn't check the action at the nut, and we can check it and make sure that it's right. So before we turn this thing loose on the customer. But it feels pretty good. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Well, quite honestly, it's high on the G. I mean on the E. It's high. It's high all the way across. So we're going to make it even play better here real quick. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to show this because I've shown it so many times, but I am going to take the action down here at the nut. It's got a little bit of play on a 16 thousandths pick, and there really shouldn't be any play, and it should actually lift the treble strings just a fuzz, just barely lift them at all. Well, my friends, I did get the action taken down up at the first fret. It plays like butter now. And if you've enjoyed seeing what I did to this plastic bridge Gibson guitar, well then please give me a great big thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed, please get that done as well, because I am trying to make it past that 100,000 subscriber mark, and you can help me do that. Thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for more. We'll see you next time.